Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. It is a beautiful day out here in Kansas City, Missouri, and I think it would be a perfect day to put my 2008 R8 that I have right here against my brand new 2020 C8. And obviously everybody is so excited about the C8. It's the vehicle that has everybody's attention, but the R8 is no slouch. And so I wanted to do a comprehensive review, kind of old versus new. It is 12 years older than my brand new C8, yet it still has a lot of capabilities. I'm very impressed with the car. So I thought we would do an exterior review because even though they're both mid-engine, they're both V8s, there's a lot of difference in the looks of the cars. Then we're gonna do the interior, and then we'll do some performance driving and kind of pit the two, where 12 years has gone in terms of pricing, because actually they're fairly similar in pricing in the used car market currently. Now the C8s actually are overpriced right now. They go for more, but if you looked at MSRP of a new one versus this used, they get pretty close. So I thought that's what we would do today and see where they stand at the end of the day. Okay, so we have both of the cars out here, and I think we're gonna take a look at their looks, the appearance of the cars, because they are very different in this aspect. So let's start with the 2008 R8 that I have here. And as you can see, it is not stock. The color of the car, it is wrapped. It's satin flip psychedelic. It's one of the videos, or many of the videos we made about almost coming up on 2 years ago. It's hard to believe, but this color is absolutely perfect. On a sunny day like this, the car looks phenomenal and we just love it. But the car itself, it's a very sleek yet exotic look. And I know there's a huge debate on whether the R8, especially the V8 base model, is an exotic, but nonetheless, the looks, people turn their heads quite quickly on this car. It definitely gets a lot of attention, especially with the wrap it currently has, because of course Tony Stark drove the R8, and a lot of people, when they see the car, they absolutely love it. They give it a lot of praise, and they remember, you know, that is Iron Man's car. So people love that aspect of the car. But I really, every time I see the car personally, it just doesn't get old. The looks of the car have not faded. Even though it's 12 years old, I have to say I'm very impressed. I think it's aged phenomenally well, and I think a lot of people will admit that. But I love the sleek lines. There's nothing overly aggressive. It really does, while it catches attention, it also can blend in quite nicely. The wrap changes that in the sunlight, and I love it even after all of these years. Now, one of my favorite aspects of the car is the carbon fiber side blade, and you can see it right here. And it was something that when I was looking for a used car, not all cars come with that. It was an option. It was an absolute must. They all have side blades, but the carbon fiber, it just breaks up this car and it looks fantastic. I love the look of it, and it's one of the biggest comments I get on the car after the wrap is, what is that? And it is the carbon fiber side blade. Another component that I love about the exterior of the car is the running lights. These are those signature Audi running lights that a lot of cars now have running lights. My C8 has running lights, but these were the signature Audi running lights that so many people talked about. They kind of were the first ones to really make a name for these types of running lights, and they look fantastic. When my brother drives the car behind me at night, it has that aggressive running light look. Now, another thing I love about the exterior of the car is the active spoiler right here. I'm very impressed with it. Even though it's smaller and it doesn't do all that much for the aero of the car, it's a neat little feature, and it automatically goes up and down depending on acceleration or deacceleration. And there's also a button inside that allows you to engage and disengage it as well. The very final point I will make on the exterior of my R8 is I love the back glass. And this is one of the things that I absolutely knew I had to have on my C8, but the back glass of the R8 is really what makes the car. It shows off its powerful V8 engine, and so many people comment on it as well. It's kind of just a very neat feature, and it's funny when you're driving the car around, you can see people behind you pointing down, because a lot of cars are quite a bit higher than the R8. It sits quite low, and so people are able to see down into that engine bay, and it looks phenomenal. So let's jump over and talk about the C8, because the C8's looks are completely different. It's much more aggressive. The lines are quite a bit tighter, and as you kind of look down the car, it just gives off a little bit different of a presence, and that is that kind of newer look that Corvette was looking for, but it is mid-engine. It doesn't have the long nose like it used to. It's a much shorter proportion in the front because now the engine being in the rear, but the looks are fantastic. I get tons and tons of comments on the front and the sides of the car. And some of my favorite things are these lights. The front lights, not just the running lights, but the front lights, they look so aggressive. They fit the car so well as it points up to the front of the nose. Now moving along to the side of the car, one of the things you'll notice is it has that side air intake just like the R8. It's not near as large as the side blade that you have on my R8, but it is there and it looks very cool. Along with the side mirrors, you have that kind of mirror, that aggressive look right there, and then it just flows into that air intake. And a lot of people have noticed that's why the car looks so different. The proportions are completely different. So as we move further back in the car, it of course has the open engine bay design. It's one of my favorite things that mid-engine cars have. Ferrari was known for it, but as you know, my R8 has it just like the C8. And the convertibles coming out are going to be very cool for the C8. They are hardtop, but you lose this aspect, and it's something that I absolutely wanted. Now the R8's a little different. The engine sits right at the back, where as you can see here, there's a little bit of a gap. That's because you have trunk space, and it's something that I'm a little conflicted on because I hate how far the engine kind of sits up in the rear of the car, but that trunk space for everyday use is crucial. Now moving on to the rear of the Corvette, it is probably the most controversial aspect of the car. A lot of people are conflicted on how they feel about it. After owning the car, I will say, in person, it looks much better. People are worried about that boxy nature of the rear. It looks better in person because there is more depth. There's a little bit more movement to the rear, so it doesn't just look like a complete boxy mess as some people are worried about. So one of those things that, you know, each person will have to see for themselves in person to really worry about. But I do know after owning the car for quite some time, it has certainly grown on me, along with my Z51 spoiler. Okay, so we have jumped into the interior of my 2008 R8, and this is just a wonderful place to be. Even after all of these years, it's very nice in here. Now, the person that purchased this and actually built the car out, they had everything that was a leather option chosen. So everything's leather. Now, there are some plastic pieces still, but other than that, most of the knobs you're gonna see are a metal. You have pretty nice objects to feel. The sound system is not bad. It's Bang & Olufsen, and it's just a pretty nice place to be on a daily basis, and it just smells so good. That high quality, high grain leather smell that you get from the interior, even after all of these years, just surprises me every time I step into the car. But moving on from there, probably the biggest letdown of this car is the technology. It is very outdated. That is where you can feel it. The components and materials you use, they really just don't outdate. Leather is leather. It's gonna last forever if you keep it in good condition. But honestly, the technology is so outdated. We don't even have an aux or a Bluetooth in this car. Now, this is one of the very first cars produced for the US. And so at this point, there wasn't even the upgraded MMI where I could move over to Bluetooth. So we're kind of stuck using either an old SD card or we have to listen to the radio. We don't have a lot of options in terms of music. The navigation is pretty much worthless. Again, the sound system is not too bad, but overall, you can feel how dated this tech is. Even for 2008, this was already starting to feel old. Even for a brand new car, they could have done a lot better of a job. But when you're in a car like this, honestly, that isn't really what you're focused on. The engine noise, the sounds the car makes, the way it handles, that's what you focus on as you drive the car. But nonetheless, the tech side is the outdated spec of the car. So I hope that gives you a really good overview of what the interior is like for the R8. So let's go ahead and switch over to the C8. And there we are in the C8. And I have to say, this is where Corvette has stepped up their game. The C6 that I owned years and years ago, it was an incredible performance bargain, but the interior was lacking. I did end up redoing the whole sound system, but nonetheless, the interior just wasn't that nice. It was pretty outdated. The C7s, they have done a great job on jumping up in terms of quality of the cabin. The C8's on a different level. This is when they knew they were gonna need to compete with the top of the top. And GM and Chevrolet, they did it. This car, the interior is just absolutely incredible. Now, there is a disclaimer. I have a 3LT model, which means I have pretty much either leather, Alcantara, or nice carbon fiber materials absolutely everywhere in this cabin. So I do have pretty much the highest level trim, but even the base level 1LT, there's not that much plastic. Most components are metal, leather, everything's got stitching. They're a beautiful place to be, and so I love that aspect. I love coming in here and seeing my Alcantara on the top roof panel and that red stitching contrast with the black leather. They did such a good job. I've not had any qualms with any part of the car. Luckily, I don't have any issues. All the stitching looks great. I get so many comments on the interior of the car. It just feels, especially on the driver's side, like a cockpit, and that's what they wanted. You feel like you're in this fighter jet cockpit, and it's amazing. I love that aspect of this car, and everything's laid out so nice, and they have everything you could ever want at your disposal. And this is really where the C8 trumps the R8 in the biggest category as far as technology. There's nothing similar about the two cars. The technology in this car, you have everything. You have full digital displays. You can customize the car. The R8, the only thing it has is the ability to change ride comfort from stiff for sport to a little bit softer, but nothing else. This car, I can change the transmission, I can change braking, I can change the engine sound. It just has it all right at the touch of your fingers. There's nothing really that this car doesn't have, all the way to front lift. The front lift system's amazing. My camera system, so I don't hit anything in the front of the car. If I'm moving up, trying to get really tight and narrow to maybe a sidewalk area where I'm parking. They just really thought of everything for this car. Now, with that being said, some people are a little skeptical of the layout, just kind of like the rear of the C8. People are having to get used to the little control panel that we have here, and that gives you all of your AC, your ventilated and your heated seats, and all the different things you would use. And actually, as you own the car, I would say it becomes nice to have. Again, it does have that fighter jet look, but it just flows with the car, and you get used to it. You get used to the layout, just having everything right there. It becomes easier. It looks overwhelming at first, but as you own the car, you really do get used to it. Okay, so here we are driving my 2008 R8 V8. It's a lot to say, but this car has been a dream car for quite a while. And when I first got it, it was kind of hard to believe. And while it has its drawbacks, and we'll get to that, the car at the end of the day, it really is pretty great. So let's talk about specs on the car. This is the V8 model. They make a V10, a little more punch to it, but this has 420 horsepower and a meager 317 pound-feet of torque. It's completely stock. Haven't done anything to the car, but it's a V8 that revs to 8,000 RPMs. And for that type of power, she really moves. The Quattro system makes sure of it. It gives me a significant amount of power to the rear wheels, puts some more going up forward. This car really is impressive for what I would say is the number figures are pretty low on it. It's not a really heavy car, so that helps, but that Quattro system is pretty great. But I love the linear feel. Just as you kind of step into it, I'm at 4,000, just rolling in. Once you get to that 4,500, that's when man, she builds up power pretty good. The car really is not a slouch at all. It's fairly impressive. The V8 sounds so good. The exhaust, not at all impressive. It's a pretty mute exhaust. It's about to be changed, actually. It's taken way too long, but it's going, and it will open the car up. But love the engine. Now let's talk about the Artronic. This R-Tronic is a single clutch automated gearbox, and it's what's found in the Aventador, that type of transmission, and the older V10 R8s. It's all single clutch, no dual clutch. And I would say of the driving performance, it's kind of the Achilles heel. It's fun that it's raw. I mean, it will, as you can see, I mean, it makes you shake all over the place, but it is pretty slow. It's pretty clunky. It does not like stop and go slow traffic. It wants you to be high in that RPM range, and it's a happy camper. I mean, this is built off of a race car platform, and they certainly kept true to that with the transmission. It did get a lot better with the dual clutch that came out with the later R8s and obviously the Huracan platform. But I will say the R-Tronic could be better. It's not the best part of the car, and it can get old after a while. You can feather it, get it better. There's ECU tunes that allow throttle response and shift change to be better. I'm in sport, which actually quickens up the shifts, and I always do manual. But transmission's a little laggy. Nonetheless, there's no getting around it. But let's talk about a high point, not just the engine. But man, oh goodness. That grip. Just stay there and just, I mean, that's what's great about a high revving car. I just sat there in first and second, depending on how fast. I think we're sitting here in second, and I have plenty of power, plenty of torque because I'm higher in the RPM band as I'm picking up speed, and I can just lay into it, come off of it as I'm coming out of a turn, or coming into a turn, and then lay back on it, getting through the turn. It may not be fast compared to today's standards. Say the C8, 0 to 60 on this is low 4 seconds. Nothing incredible, but it's definitely not a slow vehicle. But it turns, and it grips, and its ability with that Quattro system, does not want to let go, and that is impressive. It's kind of scary how fast you can take some of these turns in this vehicle. And that part does not get old, I will say. This is the way this car, the confidence that it gives you. I mean, as soon as it feels slip in the rear, it can change that power, put it more to the front. I mean, again, the camera just doesn't do it justice, but you don't realize the grip that this car is getting. And this is a 12-year-old car. And I think it comes down to the price you pay for this car. You get beautiful looks. I would be hard pressed to find someone that does not like the looks. Sure, people don't think maybe it's an exotic. That's a pretty big debatable point, but it sure looks amazing. So you pay for that, you pay for the Audi engineering. At this price point, you are going to be lacking in power. That's kind of that in the transmission. But this car never ceases to put a smile on my face. And I think at the end of the day, isn't that what it's about? How much you enjoy driving the car, how fun it is to drive. That's, for me, that's what hit home. This car never is not fun, no matter how I have to drive it. People love it. They ask about it. And it isn't the maintenance costs of some of the much more expensive cars in the exotic lineup. Really do love this car. It's hard to deny the emotion that this car gives you. So we're gonna go and park this, and we are gonna jump in the C8 and just see how far they've come in the last 12 years. And just like that, we are in the 2020 Corvette C8. And as much as I love the R8, there is a significant difference. Not just in the technology, but the way they made this car feel. It's incredible where they have come in terms of capabilities out of a car. The car is an animal. There really is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This car is very fast. It's 495 horsepower, 470 pound-feet of torque, but once the tires are warmed up with that new mid-engine layout that they've done, it never has issues getting power to the ground. Accompanied with the dual clutch, that makes it, I mean, people are getting 0 to 60s in 2.7, I think even 2.6 seconds. It's marketed 2.9 or 2.85 maybe. This car is something else. And I absolutely love it. I love the versatility. The ride comfort, the R8 is not bad. When you put it in soft mode and you don't put it in the sport mode, it glides along. It's got magnetic ride just like this car, but they've come a long way. I'm in sport mode now. I think this is the most versatile mode. It keeps it louder, but yet my steering isn't so stiff like it is in track. But you can change everything. There's my mode where you can change you can tailor every option to what you want. So you can have light steering so it feels good, decent pedal response, loud engine noise, suspension is smooth, however you want it. You can tailor it for whatever your needs are. Take it to the track, go and hunt some supercars down, and then drive home. In eco mode, where you're getting 35 miles a gallon because 4 of the banks of the V8 turn off. Listen to your music, have your navigation, AC going. It's crazy. And the car, it just grips. Now it doesn't rev to 8,000 like the R8 does. Only 6,500. And you can feel it. I've actually bounced off the rev limiter a couple times. I always drive in manual mode. I know a lot of people are bummed didn't come with the manual, myself included, but I see why. To keep up with Ferrari and Lamborghini, they don't make manuals anymore there. It's all dual clutches. To keep competitive, a dual clutch is better than anybody that can shift, but you aren't quite as connected to the car as you are with the manual with this. It's very good. Both cars very similar in that V8 linear band. This has obviously more torque. Honestly, videos don't do it justice on these roundabouts, but for a rear-wheel drive car, this right here is why I can tell you, driven C6s, C7s, that right there is why the mid-engine exists. That grip, that performance. ZR1's an animal, 755 horsepower stock, but it can't put all the power to the ground in most gears. This, let's check it out. God. I don't know if there's a perfect car out there. This isn't perfect, but man, it is very good in so many categories. Performance, comfort, and the ability to, they're chasing Porsche with the ability to pretty much spec out a car however you want. Mine is highly spec'd out, 60,000 though, MSRP. I added 30,000 in options almost. You don't have to. You still can get an incredible car at a much lower price point than what I paid. You get most of this, and it is a lot that you get. say it in a lot of my videos, but one of my favorite things about this car is the PDR. I'm gonna do a little overlay, so we'll do a pull here and I'll pull it from the PDR. And I say it in a lot of my videos, but one of my favorite things about this car is the PDR. I'm gonna do a little overlay, so we'll do a pull here and I'll pull it from the PDR. You just go. My tires aren't all the way heated up, so I still even slip there a little bit, but it does not change how quick this car is. And in today's standards, 500 horsepower really isn't even that much. But the thing is if you can't put it down to the ground, it doesn't matter how much you have, 1,000, 1,200, I can put the power of this car down. That's what makes it quick. That's what makes it really fast. Add in the dual clutch launch mode. It's going to be pretty hard for other cars to beat this off the line. Sure, once you're past 100, 120, Hellcats and other cars that struggle to get grip early, they'll start catching you. They'll eventually pass you if you give them long enough. But for day-to-day driving, street performance, this is a game changer. I dearly love my R8, but there is no doubt where they have come in terms of the C8. Well, everybody, I think that takes care of it for today's video. I really enjoyed making it, and I thought it would be a fun video just showcasing my two cars and the huge difference that time does make. These cars are just getting so much better with time, but I love my R8. There's no denying how great that car is, but the C8 is just, it's a phenomenal vehicle. Anybody that is waiting for a C8, it is worth the wait. It is that good. I absolutely love it, and even though it's worth so much more right now in the marketplace, I don't think I could sell it. And I have some really cool modifications coming up. So make sure you all stay tuned for that. Make sure your bell notification is hit. And for all of you subscribers out there, I just want to say thank you so much. This channel has gone far beyond what I've ever expected. It's such a fun hobby of mine, and to share my love for cars with other people that love cars, obviously, that subscribe to my channel. Thank you all so much. Your support is appreciated more than I could ever express. And anybody new to the channel or thinking about subscribing, please, we have tons of automotive things planned, especially for my C8 upcoming. So think about subscribing. As always, you all take care, and we'll see you next video.